Hello everybody, welcome back to Everyman Prepping on this Sunday evening, April 2nd. We're going to talk about the massive news, the surprise news, the media says, out of Saudi Arabia and OPEC about the massive oil production cuts that are going to go into effect May of this year through the end of the year. As I posted in the community post earlier, shouldn't be really a surprise to people in this community if you've been watching the videos knowing that this is OPEC's plan. So let's talk about why it really doesn't hurt them, even though they're selling less oil, what's to do to oil prices, and how this is really a destruction of the U.S. power, the U.S. dollar, and why they would be, looking to do this. I'm going to go get into all that there. So please like the video, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and ring that bell for future notifications. So let's talk about this real quick. Saudi Arabia, the leader, is going to cut, as you'll see in a minute, 500,000 barrels per day of oil production from May through the end of the year. Sounds like, and this is in defiance to the to Biden and their administration, what they said. They didn't want them to cut previously. Now, out of nowhere, out of nowhere, really, they're saying OPEC decides to do this. So we look at this article really quickly, and we're in the middle of the Zero Hedge article, and we're going to kind of work backwards because they did some updates to it. But it says here that previously Russia already cut 500,000 barrels per day back in March in response to Western sanctions. So that's already 500,000 barrels a day out. Now you're going to say, well, hey, the West wasn't supposed to be buying oil from Russia anyway. Who cares if they cut it? Well, because they sell it to India, China, African countries. So if they're not producing as much, well, those countries are going to, if they can't get off from Russia, they're going to go to OPEC and get it. So if they're getting it from OPEC, that's less for Western countries or higher prices, as we'll see. So going on through that, what we have to do today's cuts that came out today is Saudi Arabia to cut oil by 500,000 barrels a day. Mentioned that. But then you got Kuwait. And all these say voluntarily. No one's forced them. They all group and they kind of decide this. But Kuwait says we're going to do 128,000 barrels. The UAE, 144,000 barrels. Kazakhstan, 78,000 barrels. Iraq, 211,000. By the way, remember that whole Iraq war? U.S. thousands of lives went in there, installed a new government. Supposedly, they're going to be, trade partners. We're going to get oil out of them. Well, you know what? Didn't turn out that way, did it? A lot of stuff in that war didn't turn out, but that's another digression we don't want to take. Anyway, Iraq cutting 211,000 barrels per day. Algeria, 48,000. Oman, 40,000. So you add up just those OPEC and OPEC plus countries together, and it's 1,149,000 barrels per day cut. You add in the Russian one, you're at over 1.6 million barrels a day. That's a gigantic cut into the market. And what happens when you cut in the market? The price goes up. And let's look at that really quickly here. We go to this chart really quickly, and you can see this is when it was announced. This is today, the huge spike up, almost to $81 a barrel, it says right there. And then it's come down a little bit, but right now it's at $79.79. And what percent up is that? Let's look at this really quick. Go to Yahoo Finance. $79.90 up $4 just on that announcement, which is 5.6%. It was, like I said earlier, almost 7%. So huge spike. Almost $80 a barrel of oil. Haven't been there in a long time. So that's what, that is basically causing to the price. We have the same demand, less supply, oil prices spike. What does oil price spiking do? We're going to talk about in a minute, but I want to get to this. What was the U.S. reaction to this? This is from the White House. The National Security Council spokesman put out saying that output cuts aren't advisable right now given the market uncertainty. That's what they passed on to Saudi Arabia. That's not advisable to do this. Well, it's only not advisable to the United States because we are not energy independent anymore. We used to be with the former administration, but then this new administration came in and day one canceled an oil pipeline. But we're no longer energy independent. So, yeah, these output cuts are not advisable to the United States and to Europe, but it's not going to affect Saudi Arabia, OPEC, and the East at all. So White House saying that doesn't carry much weight, and they're probably just being laughed at. What we have here is we have Halima Croft, who is a commodity strategist at RBC Global Capital Markets. It says Saudi Arabia was staking out an economic strategy independent of the U.S. After its deteriorating relationship with the current administration. She says it's a Saudi first policy. Kind of interesting, America first. Used to have that. Now, anyway, going for Saudi first. All right, quote, it's a Saudi first policy. They're making new friends, as we saw with China. And then she says that the kingdom was sending a message to the U.S. that it's no longer a unipolar world. So what are we basically talking about here? By cutting this oil, there's no more fear of OPEC fearing the United States, doing what they say. You produce what we want, you make people use the dollar. This is a big thumbing the nose at the United States, saying we're not afraid of you no more. They see my opinion here, that OPEC, Russia, China, they see the U.S. and the U.S. dollar, the petrodollar, as a wounded animal. Blood in the water. The sharks are circling. The hyenas, they're ganging up. All the animals are ganging up on the wounded animal. They're going to take it out. Through the past week, we saw all the countries join up, making deals to trade in their own currency, avoiding the U.S. dollar. We had the Brazil, the French buying oil in yuan, Saudi Arabia joining the SCO, Shanghai Cooperating Organization, all that. Now you have, on the heels of that, remember, this is all within a week. Now we're up to maybe 8-9 days. We have OPEC cutting oil, raises the price of oil. What's that do? That's going to cause inflation in the United States back here at home. Because we use oil in all the vehicles. Oil fuels are used in transportation, making of goods. Petroleum products make a ton of goods. So if all that is more expensive, inflation goes up. Basically, inflation's back on the menu, boys. With the rate cut that Powell just put in, 25 basis point a couple weeks ago, people are thinking, okay, we're done. That was the last one. We're going to go flat. We're going to even reduce rates now. Well, if this oil cut has the effect that it should raise prices, should cause inflation to spike again, because things are going to cost more. Well, can Powell do that? If he cuts rates, inflation's going to spike further. However, the banking crisis going on due to high interest rates and people pulling the money out and the banks having to sell their bonds because they can't pay their people that take the deposits out because they actually don't have your money. It's all fractional banking, fractional reserve banking, and they actually don't have your money. They have to sell bonds to give you your money. Anyway, all that to be said is this inflation, if it's not fought by higher rates, let's put it this way, if it is fought by higher interest rates caused by Powell, banks are going to fail even faster and more banks will fail. If he cuts rates, well, yeah, the banks might be fine, but inflation is going to hyperinflate. And so it's almost a no-win situation. We're going to have to really keep our eye on this and see what's going on. This is, basically those countries out in the world that we've talked about, all the Brics countries, now the OPEC, they want to see the dollar and the United States go down. It's time to put the bully down on the ground and punch him in the face as long as they can and knock it out. And that's where they're going to go. That's what they're going for. They're going to try to knock out the U.S. Off the world stage, off the reserve currency, off the big kid on the block. They want to, not only take the United States down a few pegs, they don't want to knock it out. They want to destroy it. And they see this as their chance. We'll see how it goes over the next week, what else happens. It's amazing the number of stuff that has already happened. What this also leads to is the strategic petroleum reserves. That whole bunch of oil we're supposed to have in reserve for when, United States kind of, goes to war, like with, Russia or China or Taiwan or Ukraine or whatever. We need to have a lot of oil in that reserve so we can use it, for wartime or to replenish supplies here at home. Well, that's basically been drained by Biden over the last year or so. And he's like, we're not going to, saying he's not going to refill it at $70 or $60. They wanted to go cheaper. Well, oil was going cheaper. What does OPEC do? Cut production. Boom, we're almost up to $80. They can't refill it at that price, so that sits dry, which is another benefit to people at war like Russia and China and Iran. So like I said, it's all ganging up. It's all lining up. None of this is a coincidence. So what is you and me and the Everyman prepping community, what do? Well, buying stuff, inflation, if we see these prices that we, have on this chart here, this, as I see, the oil's going up. You're not looking at it. Let's look at it. Oil's going back up here, and, it's still 79. If it keeps climbing, if it doesn't drop right back down where it was, and it keeps this higher spike going up, what do we need to do in this community? You need to spend, not financial advice, of course. I always got to say that. Don't want to get the YouTube police after me. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but all that paper that Federal Reserve note, that green stuff in your wallet, anything you buy today is going to make you money as inflation goes up. You're going to make more return on that probably than any stock, even Bitcoin, silver, any of that stuff. So spending that now on stuff you use and need and eat, all that stuff is going to make you more money than trying to keep it in the bank and hope for the best. So as advice, like I said, what do? You spend those Federal Reserve notes that aren't saved for your immediate billing, your property taxes, your food, things like that. And then you buy your food, your brass, your lead, if you have all that done, then you got your medications. Can you stockpile your medications? We've talked a lot lately about stockpiling different foods and oils. Get those going. Get that summer garden ready. It's springtime. Put some money into that. Even if it's a few plants, invest in that. If you invest money into that, that's going to pay you higher returns as the food shortages continue and food prices go up. So invest in that. Transportation, that kind of thing. Finally, at the end, maybe go into silver and gold. Put some in there to maintain and preserve your wealth over time. Go into there. So do all that stuff. Now, fuel prices going up. A lot of people can't even afford to do all the stuff we just talked about. And they're going to wonder how they're going to drive around with gas price skyrockets. Well, you got to start thinking about ride sharing, carpooling, a car that gets better gas mileage, biking. Can you do a scooter or moped to get around? Whatever it takes. Put in the comments below, your suggestion for people what they should do during this time. But it's snowballing right now. Things are happening. I'll keep you informed as I can. But as we get into this next week coming up, it's going to be more fireworks, I think. So till next time, keep your ear to the ground, head on a swivel.